I promised y'all that I would do a comparison video, the Lews versus the 13 fishing. And so you notice I've been fishing in a lot of my most recent videos with this reel right here. It's the Inception. One thing I'm always talking about on my channel when I'm talking about reaction baits, which would be crankbaits, chatterbaits, spinner baits, baits like that, I always like to use a slower gear ratio reel. All three of these reels that I'm going to talk to you about today are 6:8 to 1 gear ratio reels. I'm telling you guys, every time I have this conversation, people say, well, I just use an 8:3 to 1 and I just slow down. I'm trying to tell you, you think you're slowing down, and the moment that your mind is on cutting the grass at home while you're fishing, or did I leave the stove on? Where am I gonna go next? Is Billy Bob sitting on my fish? That guy's boat's faster than mine. Boy, I wish I had a newer boat. Man, I spent too much money on my boat. I got all these electronics and I don't know how to use any of them. The moment your mind goes on that, you start doing the pencil sharpening. You start going faster, faster, and faster, and faster, and faster. That's why it's important. You don't have the mental and physical capability of slowing down and maintaining the speed of your baits consistently. You might do it every once in a while, but you won't do it consistently. So that's why it's very important to pick the correct gear ratios for your reels, among all other things. But that's the number one thing that I think is important, to pick a slower gear ratio reel. Now, with that being said, slower gear ratio reels, for whatever reason, the market is being pushed by faster gear ratio reels, the 7.5s, the 8s, the faster. It's not, the market is being pushed because that's what the consumer wants. That's what you, the buyer, has shown all the reel manufacturers what you like the most is a faster gear ratio reel. And so, with that being said, you know, the reel companies, they want to make a good reel and they also want to make sales. And so if you show them that you want faster gear ratio reels, then that's what they're going to make. And so I've always had a hard time finding good quality reels in slower gear ratios. The higher end stuff, a lot of times I might use a mid-grade rod, $99, $150 rod. In fact, my signature series rod is $149. But when it comes to reels, I like to have the best reel there is, because that's where all your torque and that's where all your damage is done, especially with reaction baits. It's throwing out, clicking over, throwing out, clicking over, throwing out, clicking over. It's constantly putting a lot of torque and a lot of wear and tear goes into your reel. So I'm really picky about the quality of reels that I have. So that's why I've always been a stickler of, is that a word, stickler? I've always been really serious about having a higher quality, higher end, low gear ratio reel. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why, what I like about these two setups right here. You know, there's things that I like about both of these. The 13 Inception, what is it? Hits a really good price point, and then the Lews Custom Pro and the Lews Tournament Pro are reels that I've used a bunch. Let's talk about the ones that, let's talk about these two guys, the Tournament Pro as well as the Custom Pro. I put a lot of time with these two reels here, and I'll tell you some of the things I like about them and some of the things I think they can improve on both of these reels. So the Lews Tournament Pro has been the one that I've used the most when it comes to throwing a spinner bait, throwing a chatter bait. This is a really good reel to use for those two applications, in particular a spinner bait. Now, number one, when you're something like a square bill, a balsa plug, even a spinner bait, but more particularly like smaller crankbaits, they can be a pain to throw sometimes. They're not that easy to throw. And you gotta have a good reel with good castability. I don't know, for you guys that are probably waiting for extremely technical video on what the frame is made out of, how many ball bearings, none of that stuff matters to me. I don't care what the frame is made out of, Jared. I don't care how many ball bearings. What does it fish like? What does it feel like? What does it cast like? That's all that matters to me. I do not care how many ball bearings, what the frame is made out of, and how many pieces of carbon fiber and fiberglass and titanium for bitumenite is in it. That don't mean nothing to me. What does it feel like? So this ain't gonna be that video if that's what you're thinking it is. If you think I'm gonna give you the weight, and I'm gonna tell you, look, I fish with this reel and this is why I like it. That's what kind of video this is. Lews Tournament Pro fits in your hand really good. It's a small reel, very tiny. So is the Custom Pro, but I feel like the Tournament Pro is a much smaller reel. So there's a lot less fatigue on my hand when I'm using my locker rod in my hand and I fish it all day. You really know what you got. When you take a crankbait and you throw it all day for 3 days, 6 days, 7 days, you know what kind of reel you got at the end of the week. Because if you ain't got a good reel, it's gonna be clunking. My buddy O from out west is gonna be kabaka, 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 kabaka. If you ain't got a good reel, it's gonna be making noise at the end of the week. I never had any problem with quality when it comes to my Tournament Pro or my Custom Pro. I've fished the same reels for 3 years, and this guy's held up to it. It hasn't had any problems. One thing that I like is the size. I like the way it feels. Haven't had any problems with how the reel seats onto my rod blanks. I don't have any problems with the reel coming off or the clasps backing off. They fit really good on my reels. One thing is with bigger pound tests, you'll notice the Lews has a smaller spool size. That can be less than ideal sometimes. So if I'm using 20-pound tests, I can't get quite as much line on this guy as I can like the 13 reels. Probably my favorite thing about any of the Lews products, I don't know if you can see it here. You see this guy right here is legendary. That is a bait keeper. So this guy right here, you can flip it up, right? And this is where you can hook your spinner bait. Can you see it? That's where you can hook your crankbait. Because a lot of rod manufacturers, a lot of my rods don't have bait keepers or not a sufficient bait keeper. Dude, this guy right here, that is life. That is a lifesaver right there. That little guy right there. And it's easy to flip. You can flip it in and out of the way. Most of the time I just fish with it up and I don't have any problems. But if you're worried about the line getting caught in that, you flip it right down and it's hidden. It's hidden right back in there. There must be a patent on that, because if I was a real manufacturer, I would tell them, look, that little thing that the Lews Tournament Pros and all the Lews reels got, you need to put that on my reel. If I was a real manufacturer, I'd put that on there. That is a godsend, because it also gets the bait up and away from your rod sock when you put it on too. So you don't have to worry about most of your bait. It's like a jerk bait, you will, getting tangled up in your rod sock. I love that about it. I like these handles, good, the paddles, whatever these are, the bigger ones, because I mean, you got a big one on, you got a lot. I got kind of big old manly hands, and I got a lot to grab here versus, let me show you this. That's what the other ones, these, not my favorite. I'm not really crazy about the round ones, but these big paddles, I like these guys. Paddles work good. Your magnetic control is on the side. I'm back and forth on the brakes for your spool. This is how you control your cast. If you throw a bait, it's a little too heavy, you tighten it up. You got a bait, it's a little bit too light, you lighten it up. This is how you adjust your magnets, is on the side of the reel. Only thing I don't like about adjusting the magnets on the side of the reel is sometimes you can get it a little jacked up. These reels do tend to be pretty good about not getting jacked up, but you can get it a little jacked up sometimes, just from setting in the box, or it can accidentally loosen up your reel. You go to throw it, and it open up the whole spool on you. So that is a downside to it. The plus side to having your dial on the side is it's right there. I'll go out there and make a cast of my jerkbait, blow it up. I know, click, click, click it over 2 times, I'm ready to go again. So that is the plus side to that. I don't have much else to say about this. Pretty decent drag. I'll be honest with you, most of your, you don't get bait casters for drag. All 3 of them suck. All the bait casters suck when it comes to drag. That's why you see a lot of times when I got a fish hooked on crankbait, people ask me why am I free spooling so much, because the drag suck. That's why. if I open it up, I can't reel and it doesn't really pull off line. And if I tighten it down, what I like to do is tighten my drag pretty good. And then I use my thumb as the drag system. So that's pretty old school, but for anybody to tell you, well, my Baitcaster, the drag is good, Brian, Taquavius, all of them suck. Every last one of the reels I'm about to show you, the drag sucks on them because you just don't buy a Baitcaster for drag. So there's that. The 13, the Lews, the Shimano, whatever you got, it sucks too, I promise you. Baitcasters just don't have good drag. That's why when I use finesse equipment, I use spinning reels because spinning reels have a better drag system. Jump to the Custom Pro. You pretty much got the same format. I feel like it's a little bit bigger. I feel like the reel in my hand is just a touch bigger. It might not be. You Lews fanatics out there, tell me if it really is bigger. It feels like it's just a touch bigger. But one of the things that now when I want to compare the 13 to this reel is you'll notice that the Lews has this more circular or oval side face to it, side plate. This plate right here on the 13 is much more flat and it just has a totally different feel in your hand than the Lews. You just have to pick them up to understand what I'm talking about. But these two reels feel completely different in your hand. It's not the same feel at all. This one has it's a much smaller frame, much smaller side plate, and then it just kind of molds to the side of your hand. The reel will stick out the side of the rod blank a little bit, if that makes sense. And it's just a totally different feel. You just got to pick it up to understand what I'm talking about. You got a different style handle here on the Lews too. I'm not really crazy about the round handles. I've found myself like missing when I get one on. If I'm doing the Brian Latimer and I'm going back and doing my deal, sometimes my hand can miss the handle on this guy. I want to say this reel is like $269. I never did talk about price point. $269 on the Custom Pro. And I want to say this one's like $199 somewhere. So by the book, this should be a higher quality reel. One thing I've had problems with the Custom Pro, cool weather, cold weather, 25, 30, 40 degrees, the anti-reverse doesn't work on them. So I've went to boat flip like a 2-pounder, pound and a half, non-keeper, and just go to grab the rod, put him in the boat, and the anti-reverse doesn't work. So boom, reel blow up. I did not like that about the Custom Pro. And it's not just a bad run that I got. If you fish where there's warm weather all the time, you're never gonna see this. If you fish where there's cold weather, you're gonna have problems with the anti-reverse with the Lews Custom Pro. New to my channel and new to my little rod and reel arsenal is this guy right here. What a workhorse. $99. The 13 Fishing Inception. 13 Fishing Inception. Again, I don't know if you're looking for the weight and what it's made out of. Go Google it. I don't know. Maybe I'll put some links in the description box where you can go read up on it. I don't care how much a reel weighs. I don't care how much what it's made of and all that stuff. Maybe one day I will. Right now I don't. Cheaper than any of the two that I just gave you. But it has a feel. It feels, when you pick up a reel, you know the quality. You can feel the quality immediately. It feels much similar to a $200, $250. You probably really can't tell by the way this video is not going to do it justice, but that side of that reel is almost straight flat. Gives you a totally different feel on the reel. And what it does is in its own way, it makes it where you don't have quite as much fatigue on a rod. Let me find a rod here. This is the rod that you see me use this on. This is a favorite Defender. What I like about it is when I put this on my reel, on my rod, the reel is almost like pushed in. So I don't feel that bulk of a reel. Like it's almost like all I have in my hand is the reel itself. So that feels really good in my hand. I've thrown so far, now this reel, I've put the least amount of time on it. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about this reel comparison. I've had the least amount of time on this guy right here, the Inception. I used it at Pickwick and I used it at Gunnersville. That's it. I've used it for shallow diving crankbaits. I've used it a little bit for a chatterbait, but mostly for throwing a spinnerbait. 6:8 to 1 gear ratio reel. Has a nice handle on it. I like these. Let me take this back off. I like these style handles the best. I don't know what you call these, but these are like Shimano handles from back in the day. It's a twist between round and a paddle. Figure out a name to call it. I don't know what you want to call it. You know, you don't have the cute little bait keeper like you do on the Lews, but they did make a little place right here where you can hook your bait and not scratch up your reels real bad. So I give them A+ on that. It holds a ton more line. I don't know how much line it holds, but if you're using 20-pound test or 25-pound test that you need for whatever application it is, it's gonna hold plenty of line. On the Lews, the spools are so small. At times, that's okay. If I'm making little short casts and stuff, that's okay. But if I need to throw a chatterbait and I want to bomb it out there on 20 or 25-pound test, bigger diameter line, sometimes I throw it down to the knot. But with the 13, I got a much bigger spool, so when I'm using those bigger diameter fluorocarbons especially, I got the line capacity. When I make a huge cast across a flat, I'm not down to my knot. I like that a lot about the reel. It seemed to hold up just fine so far for 99 bucks. Like, keep in mind, when I'm telling you, when I'm talking about throwing crankbaits all day, this past tournament at Gunnersville, I had a crankbait in my hand all day. A reel, you'll find out what you got if $99 will hold up for you. When I threw a crankbait for 4 days solid, 3 days in the tournament, 1 day in practice, 8-hour days, throwing it out, click, click, you put a lot of torque and a lot of wear and tear on the gears, and a lot of stuff is going on. And the reel seems like it's gonna hold up fine. As I mentioned, I got 3 years on the Lews and I got 2 tournaments on the 13. At the end of the year, we'll know what we really got. If it's really kabucking, at the end of the year in December, we'll know that, maybe we need to probably use something else. But all my bolts have stayed intact. I've had reels to where the bolts back out and the faces come off, and I can't stand that. I don't have time. People are like, that's an easy fix. I don't have time for that. One thing that's different about the cast control, one thing that's different about the reel is the magnets. And the cast control on 13 is inside this plate, okay? It's inside this plate. So what you gotta do is, you'll see a little button right here on the back. See where it says open? I think it's open this way. You're gonna slide that little button down, and then your spool's gonna come out. You see there's a little white tab there. You're just gonna slide your brakes forward or backwards, okay? And they're numbered on there. And so that's how you get to that. So I like that setup. I have to admit, I'm a little bit bigger fan of this setup on the magnets a little better than the outside dial. It is a little bit more inconvenient to get to, especially when it's cold and you got gloves on and so forth. But I've had better luck with this style. Now, one of the downsides to it is you pop this loose and sometimes your spool can come out or the line can get behind the spool. So there is a downside. Somebody else will say they definitely like the spool tension, the magnetic brakes on the outside. I totally get it. It makes sense. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's probably a lot easier when it's on the outside, but I'm willing to take the 2 extra steps to get inside my reel to adjust my brakes and just have it secure on the inside. So far, this is really good. 99 bucks, you can't beat it. I would highly suggest it for 99 bucks. A great starter reel. Now, one thing I do like about 13 is they are creating high-end equipment with lower gear ratios. This is the Concept Z. This is their flagship of the company. What a cool reel, right? You see the orange handles on here, just that gray, that matte looking gray that's just a really cool reel, really cool looking reel. I love the way this looks. High-end equipment, lower gear ratios. gear ratios are not a factor in quality. It's not 8-3 to 1 is high quality, 5-6 to 1 is low quality. It's not how it works. It's the materials that the reels are made of. So always remember that. But higher gear quality reel, I haven't put a lot of time on this reel just yet. But the Concept Z feels really good. It's pretty much got the same shape and same body as the Inception that I showed you. So it's not gonna feel a whole lot different in my opinion in your hands. It's just got a slick finish on it. It's got a shiny finish instead of the matte finish as the other reel. But I do like this reel a lot. Same thing, it's got these magnetic brakes are on the inside of the reel. Just like the Inception, it does have a bigger spool, a lot more line capacity. So if you're using bigger line, you'll be able to hold a lot more line on it and not have to worry about throwing down to your knot. And it's available from, I want to say at least 6-8 to 1 to the 8s. It may have it as low as 5-6 to 1s. They have some 5-5s or 5-6s as well in a lot of these reels from 13. The 5-5s and 5-6s I found to be pretty much useless in my opinion. When I'm trolling towards my bait, I don't really like them because I feel like I'm just always in a rush. You know, if I'm making a one cast, like a lineup type of cast, you probably can drop down to 5s and 6s, but when I'm constantly moving, the 5s just work me to death. 6-8 to 1 is perfect gear ratio where I can keep up line, I can stay with my rod and reel or with my bait and not feel rushed. And if I need to slow down, it's slow enough to keep my bait doing exactly what it's supposed to do and tracking perfectly. A fast reel, you try to throw a square bill on a 7-8, 7-5 to 1 or 8-3 to 1, it'll wanna get out of there on you. But if you got the right gear ratio and the right speed, it's always gonna track perfectly. 13 Concept Z, great reel. 13 Inception, economy reel. I'm telling you, I've had a lot of time on it. I think you'll like it. That's a workhorse right there. That's me comparing the 13 fishing reels to some of the Lews reels. I don't know. I hope you guys like them. I mean, I'm gonna have both of them on my deck because there's things I like about both of these reels. I think they're great reels. They're gonna last a long time. Both of these reels I feel like you could have for 20, 25 years if you take care of them.